Hello, hello. Welcome to Healthy Perspectives, a podcast that takes on current cultural and social issues through a clinical lens. Hello, hello. All right, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate your time. So we're going to get right after questions for Jeremiah today, and we're going to do it there was a person that I had a conversation with on Twitter, or X, I guess we call it now. The question was this: maybe as a mental health expert, you can explain why the left, so this is somebody who's clearly probably right-leaning when you hear the rest of this, is so prone to violence, groupthink, and identity politics, while accusing the right of being extremists and cultists. And so I responded to them, and I'll give you some of that too. But before I go into my response to them, I got to tell you, I was extremely disappointed because I went, let's just find out some facts, some basic facts. And so I went to the good old Google, I went to good old Microsoft Bing, and I put in some really basic things. The most violent groups in the US for the last 10 years. And it won't tell me who it is. Matter of fact, I started to dig page 2, page 3, 5, 6, 7, and so on. So I went, okay, let's just go with the most expensive, riots or protests that we've had in the last 10 years. And I got some good information on that from the Wall Street Journal. So I will give you that. But when I was scrolling through, do what you want with this. This is just my experience having attempted to look this stuff up. And I did not go to my research journal options because I thought, hey, this should be easily accessible information. And I got to tell you, I was so disappointed that it wasn't easily accessible that honestly, I got a little frustrated and irritated and said, okay, screw it. So I'm just going to tell the details of that. What I found was when I went to the extremists, every single one in the first several pages every single one of them was right side extremists. Couldn't find diddly squat on left side extremists. I grew frustrated with that because I knew why, because I looked up this other stuff too. After the fact, I learned this, that the most extreme in terms of violent to buildings and structures and all of that stuff, at least, if not to people, and I'm pretty sure it's people too, but I'd have to go to the details to find out, and the details would not be found on Google or Bing. They would probably have to come through a research journal, which I'm now wondering, what am I going to get? Because what I found was they're all trying to tell you the right is extreme, the right is extreme, the right is extreme, which fine. There are some right side extremes and there are some left side extremes. We know this. This doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. But the fact that they're hiding it is highly irritating. Why? Because the people deserve to know the facts. Reality, the facts of what is happening here and now. And frankly, the media did not give it to me. And again, I know I went to Bing, I went to Google. Those were the two that didn't give me jack squat. Many of you out there are going to be like, well, those are left leaning. Those are the ones that you all go to, folks. I know some of you have wised up and gone to other things, but the vast majority of the population, that's their exposure, which means they're being taught a way of thinking, not a bunch of facts. And so unfortunately, when you're taught a truth and it doesn't necessarily line up with the truth, and you give up digging because everywhere you turn, it's, oh, the right extreme, the right extreme, the right extreme. Look, I'm going to give you my response. You're going to know I am not saying that the right is innocent. or the left is innocent, or the right is guilty, and the left is guilty. I'm not going down that path. I'm here to give you a healthy perspective. The fact that I couldn't easily access what is the most violent group. Look, it's not hard. Statista does all kinds of data. All they have to do is link those who have known affiliations with certain groups. It's not hard to figure that out, folks. They're just not wanting you to have it. So, all right. So let's get on with the question was, maybe as a mental health person, you can explain why the left is so prone to violence. That's their slant. Okay. Groupthink and identity politics while accusing the right of being extremists and cultists. I'm going to give you my response verbatim. I gave it in 3 responses because on X you have a certain amount of characters, right? Number 1, from my vantage point, both sides have the same exact challenge. In my podcasts, I call it the loud minority. For those of you who have followed along, you probably have heard me talk about the loud minority. Each group of people has a minority of people, a small number of people who often are, some groups are just loud. Like, let's not fool ourselves. But in terms of the political arena, the right and the left, you've got the Democrats have a small number of very loud and obnoxious people, and the right, same thing. The Republicans have a very small number, just like the left, of very loud and obnoxious people. So that's the loud minority. I'll go on. It's a small but very loud group within the Democrat and Republican Party that drowns out the reasonable people. They get a lot of press because of our cultural or our consumption or clickbait culture. That was the first response. Okay. The clickbait culture, the consumption culture, look, you go there, you go to Google and you look for what you want. You go to Bing and you look for what you want. I just wanted a simple, factual, give me the stats. What group is the most violent? That's what I wanted. That's what I was hoping to find. Couldn't find it. Why? Because it doesn't fit somebody's narrative at Bing or Google, apparently. Number 2. That says more, by the way, about media than it does about reality. All right. Number 2, I wrote, right now, the left has convinced themselves they can use this loud minority to move their agendas. Look, the right and the left both know they have this extreme side to them. They both know it. And what they're doing on the left right now, do what you want with this information. It appears to be they are using that to meet their agenda items. I'll explain. Unfortunately, they happen to be very aggressive. They like the loud minority, but they happen to be aggressive and violent, which is true. This is, I'll give you some data. I'll give you some receipts here in just a minute. The longer they're used, the more likely we'll see similar behavior from the right's loud minority. Look, this is a balanced perspective, folks. If you can't see that, open your eyes, okay? You're blind here because this is a very balanced perspective for you. And then I go on to number 3. The reason we'll see this increase from the right is because the reasonable majority will stop telling the loud minority to shut up and go home. What we need is the reasonable majority on the left to stop turning a blind eye to their loud minority and tell them to shut up and go home. Okay, now how do I know that right now, even though the media doesn't want you to know this, that the reality of this picture is the most extreme at this moment is in fact coming from the left, objectively? Well, I want to introduce you to a news article. This one is, it's called 2020 Riots on Track to be the Most Expensive Ever by Paul Osik. I don't know who this is, but this was written in September of 2020. We've seen even more since this, okay? What we know is based on this, and this is the Wall Street Journal. They care about money more than anything, okay? This isn't, they're just giving you expenses. $50 million in damage. And one person was left dead in Wisconsin. If you all know what this means, I'm getting right after this. The most expensive is the BLM and Antifa stuff. In the last 10 years, there's nothing more expensive and frankly, more violent. Now, not always to people, so that I appreciate, but the most destructive is Antifa and the BLM. Okay, you can go look it up. All right. Following the largest catastrophes, it goes on and says, riots in several cities in 20 states following the George Floyd killing. I get it. It was a big deal. Okay. I'm not diminishing the importance of what the message was. That being said, there was in 2020 dollars, there was $1.4 billion in damage in Los Angeles from 1992. That's in 1992. In 2020, because of the same, that's the most expensive on record to date until 2020, which is between $1 and $2 billion. And it looks like it's going to be closer to the 2 than the 1. Antifa, BLM. Hands down, not even close. The third on the list would have goes back to 1965, $357 million. The one that's just smaller than that would be in Detroit in 67. And that was 322. The one before that, Miami in 1980, 204. Look, those aren't even close. Those are in the millions still, folks. Now, why am I telling you this? Because we have to do better. We have to do better. The media has to do better. It is absolute garbage that I can't find out the most violent groups in the United States. That's absolutely asinine. That's crazy. Mind-boggling that it is so incredibly swayed. Now, I'm serious. This is what I put into the searches. The most violent groups in the last 10 years. Go ahead, do it. It's going to be write this. We're talking about moms who go to these board meetings are considered to be the most violent. And there's not a single act of violence that they could note, but they made the list, the top 28 without a single act of violence. And yet Antifa and BLM were not even mentioned. That was my mind exploding. For those of you who are watching, you could see it was blowing up in there. Look, the media, this is one big message for you. Don't trust it. Frankly, it's not honest. It's just not. You have to look as if you are a leftist and as if you are a right. You have to do that. If you don't do that, I'm going to be honest. It's on you. That's your crap. It is completely on you, because with what we know today, if you're not doing that part, you're not meeting your minimum obligation as a citizen of the United States of America, period. Sorry to be so blunt, but that is a healthy perspective, folks. You have to do it because they won't do it for you. They won't. They have their leaning because it's a consumption culture. They have their leaning. They know what gets them clicks from their people. And they have to maintain that to maintain the cash flow so that they can do what they want to do. It's that simple, folks. So you have to be above that, unfortunately. It would be nice if we could have real journalism, if we could have real media, but we don't. So we just have to do it different. And second, to answer that question, why? It's because of the loud minority and the majority on that team not shutting them up and telling them to go home. That's the answer, folks. If you are at a protest of sorts and you begin to see something getting out of control, some damage being done or some violence, it's up to you. They're on your team. Tell them to shut up and go home. Look, the best person to tell a football player to be quiet on the field is not the opposing team. It's your teammate. So be a good teammate. It's that simple, folks. It really, truly is that simple, because group stupid happens. A group smart can happen just as easily. So tell your teammates, shut up and go home. If they can't control themselves, shut up and go home. Don't justify it. Don't lose your morality because you've got this tool that will do the damage for you. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right, folks, that was the question for Jeremiah today. And wow, I liked it. I appreciate that question. Let me give a shout out to whoever that was, if I can figure out who that was real quick. For those of you who are interested, it was somebody named Rusty Chops, 2 Wheels, 1 Country. That's who it was that was engaging with me. So Rusty Chops at 2 Wheels, 1 Country. There you go. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good one. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. We appreciate our audience a lot, so we give you some simple ways to track us down. Please like, subscribe, and follow all the podcasts on different platforms, but you can also email us at healthyperspectives@protonmail.com, or you can check out our website at healthy-perspectives.com/podcast. It's a backward slash. So if you want to go to our landing page, if you go to healthy-perspectives.com, you'll still find us. You just got to click on the podcast button. Thank you so much.